Is this it? I guess we'll find out. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get our prayers out of the way. Well, I shouldn't say that. Do our prayers, and then we'll talk a little about rejoicing and what's going on. So please make the mandala mudra. Here is the great earth filled with the smell of incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the song of the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the song of the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the song of the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, I will attain the state of the Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Okay, let's do a little rejoicing. We'll start with my upper left-hand corner, and that would be Jackie.
Thank you, Lama Samadhi, and thank you, dearest friends. Rejoicing for remembering to go to sleep, rejoicing, and how you can transform and move past the things you may not have felt weren't so right, but just to focus on the beauty of the day and just to bring that goodness into your heart and keep growing all those beautiful seeds. So may we all remember and just see more beauty in our world for the benefit of all the world.
Excellent. That's a very good suggestion. Instead of saying what went wrong, think what went right and rejoice in the fact you got something right. And by not reacting to what went wrong in an ignorant way, you can rejoice in that as well. That's a happy thing. So very good advice. Okay, who's next? Well, I'm on the screen, but I'll be last. Let's go with Natalia.
Thank you, Smarty. So I'm rejoicing in the thing that on Monday, this Monday, I was thinking about that if I want to become like not to die in this lifetime, which sounds funny, but I need to see proof of other people doing it. And then on Tuesday, Lama Sarani had a class about Mahamudra, and she mentioned that in the teachings there is somebody who has meditated up to the end, and nothing was left after that from him. So maybe he went on living and in another dimension. So this was my proof, and I'm so happy that this happens, that I get my answers very quickly.
Are you okay, Lama Samadhi?
Oh, yeah. My medication is causing me some problems staying awake, but I'll do better. Okay, Sheila.
Hello. Hi. I rejoice that on Thursday we start the teaching of Mahamudra with Lama Sarani, and that you, Lama Sumati, are my classmate.
Well,
And also, I rejoice that I am going to learn a very good tool to be more attentive to my mind, and I start to use it in this week, and I catch the, how do you say, the motivation to do bad deeds, so I can stop it before I did it.
very good. Very good. Okay, Katya, what do you have?
Hi, I want to rejoice that I have now almost every day classes with Lama Sumati. Well, I can see him in Zoom Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So I'm very happy about that. I feel very, very happy that we can be more in touch. So I'm very lucky, and I love you and thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and rejoicing in that make it so that others can see their teachers as well. That's the way to make it happen. I guess I did fall asleep. That's pretty weird. Well, anyway, Svetlana, what do you have to rejoice in?
Hello, Venerable Sumati. Hello, everyone. I'm also rejoicing that we are resuming our teachings with Lama Sarani and with you, dear Venerable Sumati. And it's very precious to have this flow which expands on other spheres of our lives, So, like it gives more meaning and more strength in daily life. And like today, there was a mistake in indicators in data in graphs that I prepared in statistical indicators, and I was so scared and was anxious about it. And instead of cooking it in my head and be upset about it, I decided to go for a walk, like had a nice lunch, rejoice in something good. And then in the second part of the day, the whole situation resolved in a very pleasant and joyful way. So I rejoice that we have this wisdom which can help us not to be stuck in our mental afflictions, and dedicate that everyone can have peaceful and pure, blissful mind.
Very nice. Very nice. That covers the whole gamut. You didn't get upset. You made yourself, you knew you had a solution for not getting upset that included wisdom. And then you rejoice in the wisdom of not getting upset and how that's setting seeds in the future for not getting upset. So that's the whole package. So how about me? What do I have to rejoice in? Well, Carlos. So how many of you have met Carlos? Not really, haven't you? Oh, and Svetlana, you haven't? Oh, well, and Jackie, you haven't because you haven't been here.
Not
But
personally, but online maybe.
okay. Oh, I forgot Olga. I'm sorry. Olga, did you have something to rejoice in?
Светлана, я не разговариваю на английском. Но я хотела порадоваться тому,
I
что
wanted
хожу
to
постоянно
rejoice
на практике с
that I'm
Робертом
going
Смитом.
to Wednesday practices with Ward Smith.
И я делала как раз с утра саджонг и взяла как
И I
антидот
did
сделать энергетическую практику для другого человека.
and I did sojong in the morning and decided to do energy practice as an antidote.
Oh,
Мне
wow.
попалась партнерша, которая, ну, не делала еще эти практики, но после взаимной практики я ее голосом провела, мы сделали друг другу, и я себя почувствовала намного легче. И я надеюсь, что, ну, тому человеку я тоже смогла помочь.
And my partner, she didn't know about energy practice, and I did the practice with a voice. And after the practice, she felt relief, and I am rejoicing that I could help this other person as well.
Very good. Rejoicing and helping others is setting the seeds to have the help you need when you need it. That's perfect. Okay, so back to my problems or my rejoicing. Carlos came over and he's very intent on getting me the desks. There's equipment that allows you to raise and lower your desk height, and so he's looking into getting that for me so that I can help. It'll help with my posture. So we spent about an hour trying to figure out how we we're going to do that, and we have a pretty good plan for it. So he's going to order it when he gets back from Las Vegas. His son plays ultimate frisbee. I don't know if you know what ultimate frisbee is, but it's a sport, and with a frisbee, obviously. And Alan, his son, is so good that a team saw him play in one of the tournaments from Nevada. And so they drove up to Nevada today so he could try out tomorrow. And if he gets on the team, he won't have to attend practice. He'll just attend the tournament. So that speaks a lot of his skill level. I'm really impressed. So that's where they're off to, and then they'll get back. And the second, we have to get tamales for a bunch of people. Carlos saw the little baby statues on our countertop, and so now the word's out that we have to get tamales. So my wife's trying to figure out how we're going to do that, but he thought that was pretty amazing that we had 4 of them. I think we got 4 of the 6 that were in there. So that was fun. We're going to modify my desk to be a little more set up properly for this raising and lowering. I'm not sure how well that's going to work, but it's going to be fun working with Carlos to put it all together and see what happens. So I'll keep you posted. What else? Oh, my medication. We have a new medication we've added to my growing list of medications to help with my posture. It's a muscle relaxant because I have a cramping or what I call not cramping. It's another word I use. Clenching. My abdominal muscles clench and cause me to bend over. And so we're trying to find, I'm doing physical therapy, and we're trying to find a medication that might relax the muscles a little bit more. There's a funny thing about my physical therapy. My physical therapist is just overwhelmed by the fact that I go home and do the exercises. Apparently, most of her patients just do the exercises when they're at her office and don't do them at home. If you're going to do exercises once a week, what good is that going to do as physical therapy? Pretty much nothing. So I get up around 5:30 or 6 every morning and get the exercises done. Because if I get up early and get them done, they get done. If I put them off until the afternoon, then after dinner, and then before I go to bed, and there's another day gone. So that's part of my discipline. What else? Oh, I've started maybe the last article I'm going to write, and that's good news, and I'm started it. But the bad news is I get consumed by these things and really start to work far too hard and late into the night. So I have to discipline myself on this last one. But I think I shared the news last class, but maybe not. My Minuteman book, which was published a couple of years ago, has sold over 3,000 copies. And that's for a book of this nature, of its technical nature, to sell more than 500 copies is considered to be good. So I'm doing really well. Yay. So, okay, so class. These classes are tending to be harder for me to develop, but we're going to give it a shot now. We'll see how it goes. So I'm teaching, the schedule says I'm supposed to be teaching, I think, 7 or 8, but I don't remember teaching number 6. So if I did teach number 6 and I've completely blanked, then you just have to listen to it again. I don't think I taught number 6. If I did, I did. I don't remember doing it. I'm not that far gone. I may fall asleep at the beginning of the class, but I'm not that far gone. We won't share with anybody that I fell asleep. Okay. Okay, so Geshe talks about going through the 4 great qualities of the Lam Rim teachings. And this is the first time I've heard this particular explanation. It also contains within it, the class today, some things that I'd forgotten. I used to emphasize, and for somehow it slipped my mind. So this has been very good review for me. Oh, I know the other thing I needed to mention about. I'm rejoicing in the fact that organization for the trip to Romania and Armenia is coming together. It's a really beautiful facility for the Romanian part of the teaching. It's a nice isolated place in the mountains. There's a small village nearby that's, according to Christie, is more touristy than a typical Romanian village, but still that'll be nice to be able to go somewhere within 20 or 30 minutes of the retreat center to go there. They have a hydroelectric dam there. Yay. I like stuff like that. So hopefully they'll give tours. Anyway, so back to teaching. So there are 4 great qualities of the teachings on the steps to the path. These are actually 4 great qualities of any of Lord Buddha's teachings. The first one is there's no inconsistency among the teachings. Now that can seem kind of strange because it seems we can find inconsistencies, but just hang on and we'll discuss that in a minute. Secondly, all the teachings strike you as personal advice. That is one thing that continually amazes me with Lord Buddha's teachings, just how incredibly insightful they are to this day and age. And when they're written so many years ago, when there weren't computers and there wasn't Facebook and all the things that we just take for granted and just distract us. So he wrote about distractions. So it's kind of interesting to think what would have been the distractions 1,500, 2,000 years ago that would have caused them to be, well, distracted. And I can think of two very basic ones, food and water. And you stop and think about it, we're pretty relaxed in the fact that I can go to a grocery store and shop and stuff my refrigerator, not have to worry about where the food's coming from. I just have to worry about what I'm going to make. But I don't have to worry about whether there's enough rice in storage to feed a family. But back then, there weren't refrigerators, so you basically went shopping every day. And so that would, if you think about that, that would take a considerable amount of time. Then you have to worry about money. You didn't have banks and stuff like that, so you had to be able to find or keep or organize your money. And then water, water's got to come from somewhere. They didn't have taps, so they had to go get water. I don't know how many of you have ever carried much in the way of water, but it weighs, what is it? I think 1 gallon weighs 7 pounds, something like that. It gets heavy quickly. I've toted my share of water at Diamond Mountain and elsewhere, and you learn not to drink as much as you should if you're carrying it around. So those are what are the kind of distractions? Because there'd be the typical gossip and politics and everything that we have now. So there would have been that. If you had to make tools, you'd be making knives and things. I'm talking way back when, but let's say 200, I was going to say 100 years ago, but 100 years ago is fairly close to us. So let's say the 1800s. What would people have worried about in the 1800s? Basically the same things we worry about now. They just would have been a slightly different emphasis. So I think part of the story here about the inconsistency among the teachings is we find that what appears to be an inconsistency, we want to line things up in a row. And often, as you'll see in Buddhism, it's this separates into this, and that separates into that, and all of a sudden you've got this massive tree of possible combinations, and they're all consistent. And like I said, we tend to think maybe they aren't, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit. So that's secondly, personal. There's no inconsistency. The teachings strike you as personal advice. I got a little sidetracked. Personal advice. When you stop and think about the 10 non-virtues or the 10 virtues, that way of looking at it, the lifetime layperson vows, etc. He made all the vows as was necessary. They didn't just come out of nowhere. So there's probably was a time when there were only like three or four vows. And then he noticed the monks and nuns and lay people getting a little carried away with something. So he made a vow to stop that. For instance, drinking. Probably at the beginning, drinking wasn't an issue. But then when he saw the monks or nuns or lay people getting drunk all the time, it was clear to him that, and losing control, it was clear to him that that had to be stopped if people were going to be serious about their practice. So what is it about drinking that's the problem? Is it because you feel good? Eating ice cream makes me feel good. Well, eating food makes me feel good. But what is it about alcohol? Anybody have a guess? What happens when you're drunk?
Not
Go
that
ahead,
I have a lot of experience, but I could say that it allows you to feel maybe more elated, more happy, more free, but more carefree.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. Carefree. You're being, oh, what's the term? It's a term. Loss of control. You lose control of. When I got inebriated, I was a happy drunk. Apparently, I was a lot of fun to be around. But I had a roommate when he was drunk that was really foul-mouthed and combative and argumentative. So you lose control, and that's something most people, if they lose control, are not in good shape. So that's why we don't drink. It makes us possibly do something that would endanger ourselves as well and others. So it's not only you lose control and do silly things, you could do something really stupid and cause people to get hurt in a massive way. So that's the personal advice about not getting drunk. What other personal advice? Well, it comes down basically, I think, to this. And I think this is something, Natalia, that you had mentioned. You have that friend who doesn't respond to is your friend or a friend of a friend that doesn't respond to Parkinson's medication?
Friend of a friend, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking about that, and my wife's usually the one with the better advice, but I checked this with her and she thought it was pretty good. So I'm coming up in the world. My wife's starting to agree with me. I always agree with her because that's the secret to 49 years of marriage. But anyway, I'm telling you all my secrets now. Anyway, what I came up with is, and you've heard this before, but this is germane to apparently there's a gentleman who doesn't respond to the Parkinson medication, and it's got him quite frustrated and maybe even angry. He doesn't know what to do. Well, I am going to share with him at some point when I get in contact with him this story. But before I knew anything about Buddhism at all, before I knew pretty much anything about the golden rule or anything like that, when I learned to drive and had to fix my first flat tire, I said to myself, you will stop at every time you can possibly do so and help someone with a flat tire. Male, female, old, young, doesn't matter. And in doing so, you think to yourself, now I can expect, I put something in the bank, so to speak, to expect someone to help my mom or my sisters or my brother or my dad or me when I get a flat tire. And I knew nothing about karma, but what I was doing was rejoicing. I was basically doing a rejoicing practice when I was 15, 16 years old. Well, I guess if I had my license, I was more like 17 or 18. But you stop and think about that. And that's where this personal advice issue comes in, because even now I stop and I think, remember back to those days, and it was pretty powerful. So maybe one reason I haven't succumbed to Parkinson's is because of that very desire to help people when they're in an inconvenient situation with a flat tire. So for this gentleman, I'm just going to say, I did that, and I believe that's whether, and without having to mention seeds or anything like that, I believe that's why I get the help I need when I need it. So if he needs help, he needs to help. And my advice to him would be to find someone else to help get what they need. No mentioning of seeds, just my personal experience. Now, if he happens to pop up with, oh, that's a seed system, all the better. But what do you think, Natalia? You don't know the gentleman, do you?
I don't know him, but that's very good. Yeah, I agree. That's very, very good. Thank you.
You can try it with him. You can tell the story. I'm kidding. I just haven't had a contact her. She's supposed to contact me, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yulia will.
please have her do so.
Mhm.
Okay. So the first quality, it's nothing's inconsistent, and we're talking about that in a bit. Secondly, all the teachings strike you as personal advice. Why don't each one of you try and think about just for a minute or two, what particularly struck you as personal advice from Lord Buddha's teachings when you've been taking the classes? I can see the wheels turning in Natalia's head. Something that when you read or was taught it, you went and said to yourself, oh, that makes perfect sense. Go ahead, Svetlana.
I wanted to share, like, I had some experience that was challenging experience with my mother. I couldn't understand why she was behaving this way, because I felt that like it's like very hurting experience. And then it was said that everyone is your mother and they are just reflecting your seeds. And I started to contemplate, wow, it was like at the appropriate time, and to understand that everyone is my mother. So every people in my country and how my country is behaving is also like they want me to help by showing what I should work on. So these thoughts like was some striking thoughts as a personal advice.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that everyone's your mother, because I've struggled with that. It's not that I don't agree with the concept, but I'm trying to think how every one of you have been my mother. I've been your mother. I just I can't put my head around that. So instead, and this comes later in today's class too. Instead, I converted it just a little bit, and I say, what does my mother represent to me? In addition to having carried me and raised me, she's educated me. She taught me the social norms, the things that you do and don't do. And you don't speak with your mouth full, stuff like that. I mean, little trivial things, but social graces. Without my mom, I would not have learned those things. And so I consider everyone's my teacher. And in that sense, they're like my mother. So I'm not sure that's exactly what they're talking about, but the idea is if you think everyone's your mother, you should treat them with the respect that you were brought up with your elders. Now that's another interesting thing. It's a detail, but I find it interesting personally. When I went into plant biochemistry, my father was a reasonably well-known plant biochemist, and so we had Nobel Prize winners at the house occasionally and things like that. And my oldest sister, once she turned, well, I guess when she first went to college, she started calling all my dad's fellow scientists by their first name, which I thought was really familiar. To this day, if you have a PhD in a subject, I'll call you doctor or whatever, whomever, until I hear otherwise from you. But Dr. Kahn was one of the co-authors of a book my dad wrote. He's always been Dr. Kahn, will remain Dr. Kahn to me. So where does that come from? That comes from the personal advice of respecting your elders. I think I try and go out of my way to respect an elder, a friend that's accomplished something, students that have done wonderful things. I try very hard to respect. That's why I don't have nicknames for many people. I think nicknames can often be quite hurtful and disrespectful. And a perfect example of that is our current president, who likes to make up derogatory nicknames. That's only going to come back with him having speech he doesn't like to hear. And that's the hole he's digging himself into. So, personal advice. Okay, thirdly, you'll understand what the Buddha was thinking. And I'm not quite sure where that one comes in. If you study the Buddhist sutras and commentaries carefully, you will begin to understand what the Buddha was thinking and why there's no inconsistency and why you should consider it strikes you as personal advice. And if you understand the first three forms of greatness, you'll automatically won't fall into the fourth problem. The fourth problem is you might start to think there were higher and lower teachings among what the Buddha said. And you want to start to distinguish between theoretical teachings and teachings you can put into practice. This is simply not appropriate. From what Geshe says, that's karmically a very difficult situation you're putting yourself into if you try and separate what he's written into theoretical and practical, or I like this, I don't like that. So we spend quite a bit of time in this class talking about how it's really a bad idea to make that distinction. Because everything Lord Buddha taught, he taught for a reason, and he taught to be looked at and analyzed and utilized. So, what do we do if we don't agree with the teaching? Well, I've always tried to emphasize from the very beginning when I start to teach the ACI courses, if you don't understand or don't agree with something, instead of mouthing it off to other people, simply put it on what we call a back burner. The burner's on the back of the stove where you put something to simmer and not actively boil. You put it back there and you let it cook. And you revisit it. And one day you'll revisit it and it'll make perfectly good sense. Whereas if you'd said, I'm not going to bother studying that because I don't understand it now, then you may never pick it up again and you'll be missing a chunk of what Lord Buddha said. I had an interesting thing happen before we started taking all the ACI courses. We had one, the Tonglen course, which we took first. And I think it was course 14, maybe. I think it was course 14. And where am I going? Oh, and I read part of the Abhidharma Kosha, and it made excellent, perfect, wonderful sense to me. I just read that and I thought, now that particular set of chapters really made sense. If you've looked at Geshe-la's translation or anybody's translation of Abhidharma Kosha, saying it makes sense is a pretty bold statement because it's still written somewhat in code. So I went to the class we had, this group we had, and I sat down and I said, I want to read this to you and I'll explain it to you because I think I really finally understand this concept. And I started reading it and I got ready to leave the room and then come back after they'd thought about it for a while. And I realized that as I started reading it, it made no sense to me. I had the karma initially to have it make sense, then I had the karma to have it not make sense. But was it because of the way it was written? Or was it because of seeds ripening for me to not understand it? Well, obviously the second of the two choices. So do I think there's a higher and a lower teaching there? No, I put it on the back burner and revisit it several times until I can finally understand it. So that's something we need to really wrestle with throughout our Dharma careers, is not evaluating something as being, oh, that's not so fun, or as Geshe says, that's not so cool. I don't need to study that now. And it's a fine line between I don't need to study it now and I'll put it on the back burner. I think the I don't need to study it now is much more pervasive in that you tend to throw something like that out. Whereas if you put it on the back burner, you're planning on revisiting it and possibly using it later. So the analogy to cooking is not an unreasonable one. But it's a fine line between, for instance, I don't really understand the logic courses and debate. That just doesn't make sense to me. Why not just cut to the quick and get to the answer? So that's where Arya Nagarjuna would frustrate me. It does frustrate me because he's dancing around the question instead of just saying this is how it is. But he's doing that because that's a way to teach. And that's what Lord Buddha did often, which also tends to distract me, as he talks about everything that it isn't instead of just the one thing that it is. But because he's talking about the things that it isn't, you learn to understand it in a much deeper way than if he just gives you the answer. So I've got to, when I'm listening, I've got to not think, well, when's he going to finally get to the answer? Instead, I need to think, how's he approaching this? Why is he circling in this manner? And when I can do that, I can usually figure out the part that's causing me the hesitancy. And it still may cause me the hesitancy, but now I've identified it and I can work with it. So I got way ahead of myself on my notes here. Let's see what's. Oh, the emphasis Geshe makes now is simply do not think that there's a philosophy and, and a personal practice and you can let the philosophy go. The three teachings are technically not called lower or medium teachings or higher teachings. The first two are referred to as those we practice together with the lower track. The second one is called what we practice with those of the medium track, meaning they're not practiced only by those of the first two tracks. So this comes back to the example in the Bodhisattva room and Source of All My Good, if you remember. That initially was just a bonsai tree in Geshe-la's description of that meditation. Could have been a cypress or what else do they? Bonsai. I guess they bonsai quite a few types of trees. Anyway, I like to make it into a weeping willow because the weeping willow leaves come almost all the way to the ground and protect the roots. So that's how the vows, for me, the vows that are covered, the 10 non-virtues aren't something I ignore because I'm got Bodhisattva vows. It's what I build my freedom vows on, my lifetime layperson vows when I had them, and then my monk's vows. So without a good solid foundation, the root system, the tree's not going to survive. Without an efficient way of converting the food into protein, foods, the person's still not going to survive. I lost my train of thought. This medication's causing me more grief than I thought. Oh, I know. So you build, in the bonsai example, the roots are the freedom vows. The trunk is the bodhisattva vows, and the leaves and branches are the tantric vows. The freedom vows don't rely on the trunk as much as they rely on the leaves and branches because they need the energy from photosynthesis. Well, we're in the analogy of the photosynthesis. But if you don't have the leaves and branches, you won't be able to feed the roots. But if you don't have the roots, you're not going to have the trees and branches and leaves. So they're interconnected. You can't just say one's not important, more important than the other. And that's the point Lord Buddha is making, or the greatness is the fact that we're not ignoring something that was taught at a lower level. Well, and earlier. Now I've been looking for the word for a long time, and I think I just found it. We don't, how can I put this? We build our practice on the earlier teachings we've had. So before we became bodhisattvas and knew about bodhisattva vows, we had the 10 virtuous deeds. And then once we learned about the bodhisattva vows, that expanded and made more detailed how we were supposed to carry out the 10 virtuous deeds. And then when we get our tantric vows, that makes the bodhisattva vows and the other vows even more important because we build on those. So you can't, if you jump into the tantric vows, they don't make much sense. They don't seem to be much in common with the world. And then you stop and when you have taken the other sets of vows, it makes much more sense. That's one of the many reasons you don't just jump into the tantra system without any earlier education. If you do, you risk doing real harm to your spiritual body as well as your mental continuum. So when it sounds like, if someone says, oh, I get to go to the Tantra teachings, even though I haven't finished the ACI courses, if they've been allowed in by Geshe, he sees something in them that makes it reasonable for that to happen. Don't feel bad if you haven't finished the courses and you ask him, or you ask me, or you ask Sarani, and we say, if you haven't finished the ACI courses, you can't get into Tantra. Or you might say, well, that's not what you said to my friend, you allowed them in. Well, chances of that happening are really remote because we have many students, fellow students we know that didn't finish the ACI courses and did not finish the Tantra courses. They gave up after a while because I'm not sure why. But the grounding you get from the 18 ACI courses is a critical training, in my opinion, for the higher teachings. So we don't reject or deny the truth of the first two tracks. We build upon them. Now, their understanding of emptiness is, again, an early understanding of emptiness. And they may not understand emptiness at all, but I don't know how many of you would agree with me, but I'm still working on it. I talk about emptiness, I teach about emptiness, but I'm still looking for what we project the data onto. what we project onto. And Geshe says there's a movie screen. Now the movie screen's there and we project onto the movie screen. That doesn't solve my problem for me. So what is it that I project upon to coalesce my karmic seed ripening into any view on the screen? There's got to be to me, there's got to be something that's receiving this information. And if it's out there to receive it, and it's not, just doesn't seem to be caused by my karma, then that makes it self-existent, which I know is not true except for pancakes, French toast, and waffles. So what's going on? Well, I don't know, but I don't think that doesn't make me think emptiness isn't right, and emptiness and karma, two sides of the same coin, isn't the correct way of looking at life. It just makes me realize I still have to try and figure out what's going on. One way one thing I adopted for a while, and Lama Christie said it was okay, was your karma ripens, then you see it. So we ripen the object that we're going to the basis we're going to project onto. But I still think, does anybody else have that problem? Or am I the only person on the planet that can't figure out how the projections work? I can see them coming from me and radiating to us, to the outside world. But why don't they just disperse? Why do they make a Sheila or a Katya or a Natalia or a Jackie or a Svetlana or Yevgeny or Olga? I know it's my karma ripening, but I don't understand what it's ripening onto. And maybe it's not important that I understand what it's ripening onto because there isn't, well, as my wife puts it, there isn't an onto that it's ripening on because when you look for the onto, you'll find the onto as a left, a right, and up and a down, a backwards and a forwards. Yeah, that's all just, yeah, that's fine. Think that, but that doesn't solve my problem. But I know that the teachings are not inconsistent. I know they're personal advice to help me reach my goal of enlightenment. And I don't think that some are more important than others. Some are more confusing to me than others, but I've never said, well, I don't need to bother with that. I always have said, well, I'm going to put that in the back burner and one day I'll get to it. So, okay, so where else did I want to go with this? Oh, I don't remember which course this is in. Do you remember the advice Lord Buddha gave if you don't believe what he teaches? Remember that advice? Katya, I know you look like you have the answer right on the tip of your tongue.
ACI 5?
It could be ACI 5. What were his, there are three things he said about anything he says. We should,
Investigate it for yourself.
right, but he had three ways of doing that. And when I ask these questions, I'm not trying to embarrass anybody or anything. I'm just trying to make us all stop and think about what we remember and maybe what we need to remember. So, if you don't just believe what I teach, and this is one of the things that really attracted me to Buddhism, to have the person, Lord Buddha, say this I think, was really captivating to me. He said, just don't believe what I teach. Treat it like gold, melt it, cut it, and rub it. So there's a thing called a touchstone. It's a piece of shale. It's a fine-grained, kind of not really hard, but hard abrasive mineral. And if you have a piece of gold back in the old days, you took it and you rubbed it on this touchstone. And if it was pure gold, it gave a one color. If it was an alloy, it gave another color. So that's how you knew whether what you were getting was actually real gold or not. And so now you can buy a kit, and it has several different quality pieces of gold, like 10, 12, 24 karat. And you take it and you scratch the known alloy on the touchstone. And then right next to it, you scratch something from like a ring or something, and you see if the colors match. And if they do, that's the quality of gold you have, 24 karat or whatever. If they don't, then someone's trying to sell you something that's not 24 karat gold. So that's rub it. Doesn't mean rubbing it to make it shiny. Then melt it. Gold alloys have specific melting points. So I'm not sure how they did the melting point determination 2,000 years ago, but I'm sure they had some clever way of doing it. So if you take a piece of gold and you melt it, and it melts 100 degrees below the melting point of pure gold, well, you know you've got some kind of an alloy. And then cut it. Cut it would be for determining whether it's gold plated or not. Now, when they took overran all of Saddam Hussein's palaces, from Muslim palaces, they found all these what appeared to be gold fixtures for the toilets and the showers and the baths. And then someone said, this could just be polished brass. Knowing Saddam Hussein, that could easily have been the case. Well, what it was is cutting it was the analogy here. You nick the surface and it went from gold to plaster of Paris or something like that. So cut it, rub it, and melt it. So test the words that you're hearing against previous teachings by that teacher, against what you know to be true. For false they cannot be, like that phrase from the Heart Sutra. Really stop and think. And this is where you may find you think there's an inconsistency. So rather than go, oh, there's an inconsistency I figured out, go back into the notes and find out why you could be, well, you are mistaken, but find out how you could be mistaken. And that's one of the beauties of the I don't know if I've given all of you I have all the PDFs for the answer keys in one file. In another file, I have all the student notes compiled. In another file, I have all the readings compiled in PDF format. So you can take let's say you're trying to look up 4 powers of purification. You don't remember the regret part of it. You can look up the word regret and go through 4,000 pages of student notes and reading like that and find the answer. So if you don't, how many of you don't have that? You don't? No. Okay. Okay, let me make a note. Now, it's in English. I'm sorry, but it's in English. Oh, Katya, did you have a chance to check and see if the Spanish Tibetan Book of Lists was okay?
Yeah, in Spanish it's okay.
Okay. It looks like just the German got messed up. Okay, what am I doing here? Oh, lists. Lists for Talia. Jackie, did you need a copy?
I may have it, but if you could send it again, that would be
Okay,
appreciated.
this is easy, yeah.
Thank you.
Jackie.
And
How old were you when you decided to spell your name Jaki instead of Jack?
a great question. Good question. I don't know, but I know my name is so long. Jacqueline is so long, so
No, Jacqueline. Okay, Jackie. Svetlana, you have a copy, I think, don't you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, Katya and Sheila, can't forget them. I think you'll find it's fun to look through. Searching through that's what gave me the idea of making the book of lists. Because it made it very simple. I just said 4 and scanned through the notes and took out all the 4s. And so now the secret's out. It wasn't as much work as it was harder work putting it together than anyway. Okay. Cut it, melt it, rub it. You stop and you think about it, how many philosophies or religions, philosophies, spiritual paths have the head person, Lord Buddha, say, if you don't believe me, analyze it, see where I'm wrong, see if you can find something that I've said that's inconsistent. That's pretty rare. Okay, so we've talked about how bad it is to compartmentalize the teachings into those which you don't think are important and those which are important. And Geshe Michael says, that Pabonka Rinpoche says and in doing that, you collect hideous karma. But Geshe Michael and Pabonka Rinpoche both say there's one more thing you could do that's even more hideous and more terrible karma than basically saying one of Lord Buddha's teachings is too complicated. Can you guess what that is? Disrespecting your teacher. You can doubt your teacher, but to disrespect a teacher is really heavy, bad karma. Now you stop and think about, how would I possibly disrespect my teacher? Well, there's certain things you can do at the dinner table at a restaurant. I'm kidding you. You know I'm kidding you, Sheila. That joke will be there forever. I am kidding. So disrespecting, there are sets of vows that we have as tantrikas, some of which I share with students because they're not all that secret, in my opinion. One of them is you should never be pointing your bare feet at the altar. You should never point your feet even with shoes on, which theoretically wouldn't happen because you're in the temple. But never stretch your feet out pointed toward the altar. Do it to the side or don't stretch your feet out at all. Another thing you shouldn't do, and this I don't know how many students know this, but they should. You never put Dharma on a surface that's walked on. So if you're in a nice temple and it's got a beautiful rug, I always take a piece of brocade or something with me that I can put my book down on, because then it's not touching the rug, it's touching the brocade, which is touching the rug.
Okay.
And the corollary to that is never step over Dharma. So you're in a crowded temple at Diamond Mountain, and there's students all around. They've got their books laid out. Weave a way around it, but don't step over the Dharma. That's considered disrespectful. Now, what kind of seeds are you getting from that? I'll let you try and figure that out. But these are seemingly trivial things when you stop and think about it. If it's that important to you, which it should be, why wouldn't you treat it with that respect? If you had a favorite book that you really enjoyed reading, would you put a cup of tea down on the 10th page and have a big stain? I wouldn't. I have real respect for books. And this happened well before I started writing books. One other little. Oh, you should. How does this work? If you're seated, when Geshe Michael or someone comes into the room, you should stand up. It's considered disrespectful to stay seated unless you have Parkinson's and can't get up out of your chair in time. But I still try and get up. Then you don't sit until they sit. Now, is this big bad boogie thing if you don't do it? Well, I would say if you don't do it on purpose, then yes, it's bad. If you didn't know it, then I don't feel if you didn't know it that you're not collecting the karma for it. But these are just little things that keep you on your toes. Okay. Well, it's 2 o'clock. That's about all I have prepared. So it wasn't very in depth, but these are the little things you learn along the path to enlightenment that make it all the more, I think, fun and at the same time challenging. Okay, so I have lists for you guys. Let's dedicate. Well, for those of you that have done the Source of All My Good weekend, if you have the opportunity to come to one of the teachings in August, I think you'll find it quite interesting because there's a chance to go much greater detail on each of the rooms and the concepts. Now, at this point, I have approximately 80 pages of notes that I'm going to try and wade through for the classes. I'm having a lot of fun figuring it all out because now I have a chance to say more on each of the rooms. Okay, dedication. May the source of benefit and goodness, the Dharma, spread and expand. May the beings upholding the Dharma have excellent health. May the source of happiness and well-being for all embodied beings, the Dharma type of the Buddhas, always increase. And may the merit of my life and my practice be for the benefit of all sentient beings. Nope, I didn't fall asleep. This is me falling asleep.
Oh.
And then I might drool.
Oh.
That's a secret you probably didn't need to know.
Mm.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about myself. Okay. Oh, I have a question, Svetlana, about my website. So maybe I can ask you that after unless people want to, well, if you want to hear what I ask her, what the heck. I need to, if any of you know this about a website, let me please sing out. I need to unlink a document, and I don't know how to do that. It seems it would be fairly easy to unlink a document in a website. I Googled it and I got a bunch of answers that had nothing to do with websites. It had everything to do with chains. So
You need to know what platform, what is the interface?
I'm using Wix, W-I-X.
Okay.
And when I click on a button, when I click on the button in the editing portion, it comes up a little green link and you click on that and you can link to a document. But what I think I did is I've linked 2 documents into that button instead of 1. And so I wanted to unlink the German. I unlinked the English and cleaned that up. And I wanted to unlink the German, but I can't unlink it.
I haven't used Wix, but if you, I'm just thinking out loud, if you delete the text portion,
Yeah,
and then type it again and link it again.
I tried that. I deleted the German completely. and it still showed up, which I'm mystified by. So
the text portion, you deleted completely, saved it,
yeah,
and then went back and
it was still there.
typed it again.
No, when I clicked on the button, it was still there.
Oh,
I
it's
have-
the button is linked.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a text. I see. I will have to look at it. I haven't worked with Wix, but it should be pretty intuitive.
Have you heard from Leila since you wrote it?
Yes. She's offered
I
to.
got the one email that she copied me on, but I've sent her 3 messages and haven't heard back from her on fixing the website. So I was just, maybe she's got a life. Maybe she's got a job. Maybe she can't drop what she's doing and answer my questions. Maybe I have to work harder on my karma to have people drop what they're doing for me. Or not ask them to do stuff that they don't have the time to do. Anyway, so that's my work for the weekend. I'm going to try and fix that. Okay.
Have you
Just
tried
seven-
ChatGPT? Have you tried to search in that way?
Oh, ChatGPT is part of a communist plot to take over the planet. It's like Facebook and Instagram and what's the other one? Telegram. I'm kidding, Jackie. They're not a communist. Well, they may be a communist plot, actually. With China doing everything now, who knows? But no, I'm resisting using AI for as long as I can because I like searching for stuff. I don't want to make it so I just click on AI and go, oh, well, I found that. I didn't know that existed. So that comes from being 70, almost 72 years old. I'm tried and true in my ways. Give me a slide rule anytime. How many of you even know what a slide rule is? No? No? I'm aghast. Well, I don't have a slide rule anymore. I gave it up.
Oh, slides.
Yevgeny, do you know what a slide rule is? Well, he's not answering.
Is it to do with the slides like that you used the little things that you used to put in the machine?
No,
For
no, slide rule is that's an interesting analogy though. A slide rule is a calculating device. Um, wow. And I don't have mine anymore. I know, I'll buy one. I'm swearing, oh, by the way, starting tomorrow, I'm swearing off buying anything from Amazon for a month in protest of them giving up the DEI rules and regulations. So if you need something from me that I need to order from Amazon, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying you have to boycott Amazon, but it's going to be a challenge for me. But I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I hope. Okay. We'll see you next Friday. What's next? Oh, well, maybe I better check because I know there's some dates that I don't want to be caught unawares. Calendar. Go. Come on. Okay. No, we're meeting on the 7th. And yeah, this month we meet on the every Friday. Good. Okay. Lovely to see you all. I will try hard not to fall asleep again. How long was I out for?
A very short time.
Oh, good. That's actually got me. That's why I'm not driving. You can imagine how that would work driving. Oops. I don't snore, do I? No, that's good. I should share that with my wife, though. Maybe. Okay. I think that's the dumbest mudra. That's just, I haven't told my wife. I think that's just dumb. I just think that's dumb. Okay. Always good to see your lovely faces, and I'm so glad that we're back and doing class together. And we'll see you, some of you will see more than once this week, coming week, which I rejoice in. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Lama Samati. Please